پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ خاتون نے کوئی غم سے یوں چور نہیں دیکھی، ایسی کوئی دنیا میں مستور نہیں دیکھی۔ 18 برس میں ہی لگتی جو ضعیفہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بی بی نہ ملا اب تک، اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک، رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا، تربت پہ بھی پہرا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ دو ایسے جنازہ ہے تاریخ میں جو اٹھے، بس گر کے ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے، ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے، ایک سکینہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ مہدی سے کوئی پوچھے کیا اس پہ گزرتی ہے، آواز بقیہ سے جب رونے کی آتی ہے، آنکھوں سے لہو رو کر وہ بھی یہی کہتا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ تو روتی رہی گھر میں حیدر سے بھی چھپ کے، اس بات کی طرح دکھ بھی پردے میں رہے تارے، کچھ درد تیرے بھی بس جانتی فضا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے۔ کیا حال یہ امت نے، کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے سوا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أحسن
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
قبر زہرا بنا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی قبر زہرا بنا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی کیوں کمر جھک گئی ہے مولا کی کیوں کمر جھک گئی ہے مولا کی کس کی میت اٹھا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی خائے زہرا قبر زہرا بنا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی سامنا ہو گیا ہے کنفوس سے سامنا ہو گیا ہے کنفوس سے صبر کو آزما رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی خائے زہرا اپنی گردن پہ نیلے رسی کا اپنی گردن پہ نیلے رسی کا بیٹیوں سے چھپا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی خائے زہرا قبر زہرا بنا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی دیتے جاتے ہیں غسل بی بی کو دیتے جاتے ہیں غسل بی بی کو ہچکیاں لیتے جا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی ہے زہرا ایک زہرا ایک اپنی غربت کا ایک زہرا ایک اپنی غربت کا دو جنازے اٹھا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی خائے زہرا قبر زہرا بنا رہے خیالی اپنی غربت چھپا رہے خیالی خائے زہرا محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
May I ask you all to recite 5 times Aman Yujibu for all those who are sick and in need of our du'as. Bismillah.
الرحمن الرحيم ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما حجة الله في أرضه وبقية الله مولانا صاحب الأمر والزمان.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وعلى منكري فضائلهم وعلى من شرك في ولايتهم ومن غصب حقوقهم من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. أما بعد، قالت مولاتنا سيدة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين في خطبتها الفدكية: فجعل الله الإيمان تطهيرا لكم من الشرك، وجعل الصلاة تنزيها لكم من الكبر. صدقت بنت نبينا وآمنا بها. زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحبائي, you find one of the most important and critical events that took place in Islamic history, that in essence changed the course and the direction of Islam, was the events that took place upon the martyrdom, the poisoning of the final messenger of Allah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And for the events that transpired upon the martyrdom of Rasulullah, you find that Siddiqat al-Kubra alayha salam, Sayeda Zahra, delivered a khutbah in the mosque, a grand khutbah known as the khutbah fadakiyah. And in essence, there are two sermons that are delivered by Sayeda Fatima Zahra that are given the title Khutbah Fadakiyah. One in Masjid al-Nabawi, and the second one that was directed towards the Muhajirin and the Ansar. Our kalam today is when the land of Fadak was usurped from Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, and she went into Masjid al-Nabawi and she delivered a grand sermon in the Masjid of Rasulullah. And the sermon of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, in essence, is a summary of this entire deen within a single khutbah. Not only did she summarize the entire deen, but she was able to provide tafsil and tafsir of the Quran within the khutbah fadakiyah. And for tonight, I want to touch on one aspect of the khutbah of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. And it is a sermon that in essence is necessary for us to read, to be familiar, to study, and to teach this khutbah fadakiyah to others and to those who are around us. And even for ourselves or for our children in the madrasas, the khutbah fadakiyah has to be a primary resource around which an entire syllabus is built in terms of ma'rifah and knowledge. Having said this, you find that there is a part of the khutbah of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen where she speaks about the philosophy behind the acts of worship that are fundamental principles within our deen. The philosophy behind why certain acts of worship have been made obligatory upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do we recite Salat? Why do we have to give zakat? Why do we have to observe fasting? This is known as what are the reasons or the causes behind the acts of obligatory worship that have been mandated within our religion. And in fact, you find that based on this part of the sermon of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alami, scholars who paid attention to the index that was opened up by Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, the philosophy behind the acts of worship, it inspired scholars generations later to delve into the science of the philosophy behind the acts of worship, and they even authored books about this. One example of this is the book known as Ilal al-Shara'i'. Ilal al-Shara'i', yani the reasons or the causes or the philosophy behind the acts within the Sharia, written by Sheikh Saduq. Why do you have to pray? Why do you have to fast? For example, why is the tawaf 7 times around the Kaaba? Why is the sa'i 7 times? Why Mina? Why Arafah? All these aspects, you find philosophy behind the acts of worship. And Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen in the second part of her khutbah elaborates towards certain ahkam and the philosophy behind them, for which I want to touch upon one also by way of index. Sayyidat al-Zahra Ruhi laha al-Fida states, فَجَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْإِيمَانَ تَطْهِيرًا لَكُم مِّنَ الشِّرْكِ. Allah Azza wa Jal has ordained upon us the institution of Iman such that it may purify you from shirk. This is one. The point of our focus today. وَجَعَلَ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْزِيحًا لَكُمْ مِنَ الْكِبْرِ. Salat, the institution of Salat, has been ordained, has been made obligatory upon you. For what reason? Such that you may distance yourself, detach yourself from arrogance. If a person wants to sit and he wants to find out, is my salat that I have recited in my entire life accepted from me or not? I don't have to wait to go to the qabr, to the grave for Munkar or Nakir to tell me that your salat was accepted or not accepted. If I want to understand the salat I've recited in my entire life, I have to look at my conduct and my character. If I have arrogance, and by arrogance, superiority complex within myself, I know that my salat has an ishkal. Number two, this is acceptability of salat. Number two, we come and we see what is the connection between salat and arrogance. How can salat cure me? Or how can salat protect me from being an arrogant person in life? What is the connection between these two? This is number one. Number two, arrogance as a trait, which is a defect within the soul and the heart, is perhaps one of the most dangerous traits that a person can have. And I give you an example. Imagine the cancerous nature of arrogance. And I use this term very carefully. The cancerous nature of arrogance is such that its cure is something as powerful as salat. The power of the medicine is proportional to the power of the magnitude of the sickness. Salat, which is Mi'raj al-Mu'min, Salat, which is Amududdin, the central pillar of the religion, has been made an institution through which a sickness such as arrogance and superiority complex needs to be curbed. You need something as powerful as Salat. Kibr, takabbur, arrogance and superiority complex. If you want to know the seriousness of this issue, is the first crime committed by Iblis that invalidated all his ibadat prior to his arrogance towards Adam. One. Number two, how big of a crime is it to be an atheist? According to the hadith of Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Imam Ruhi Lahul Fida was asked by one of his companions, what are the different levels of atheism? The person asking the question was from the companions, was an alim. And hence we understand from the question that atheism has certain darajat. Atheism has levels. Just like the way yaqeen has levels, iman has levels, atheism also has levels. When the Imam was asked what is the lowest level of atheism, the lowest level of atheism doesn't mean you negate the existence of a God. There is something at a lower trait that gets you into atheism faster. The Ma'asum Imam says, Adna al-ilhad al-kibr. The lowest rank of atheism or the lowest status of atheism is arrogance. Arrogance, yani, superiority complex, is a form of atheistic behavior. Show the seriousness of the issue. For if we understand takabbur or arrogance or superiority complex leads towards atheism, Number two, you also find that arrogance and superiority complex leads towards dhulm, oppression. Because when a person feels that he is more superior and a person is arrogant towards other individuals, it shows in his behavior. It shows in how he or she speaks to other people, behaves with other people, treats other people, because they feel they are superior to everybody else. They are at a higher pedestal than everybody else. So they don't care in how they speak and how they act and how they deal. Whether you took somebody's right, hurt somebody's feelings, so on and so forth. You aslan, you trample on the rights and the feelings of the people around you. It became dhulm. So you find the kufr leads towards, or takabbur, kibr, arrogance leads towards atheism on one side, the lowest rank of atheism on one side, and on the other hand, it leads towards dhulm. If you understand this, the next premise is that takabbur or arrogance is portrayed or demonstrated in four different categories. There is takabbur towards the Lord, arrogance towards Allah, arrogance towards yani the Khaliq, arrogance or kibr towards the makhluk, towards the rest of the creation. And then you have arrogance towards the Nabi, and you have arrogance towards the Wasi, arrogance towards Ahlul Bayt. And we will touch on each and every one of these. If we understand these four levels of kufr, we come back to the question, and you understand if you understand the four types of kibr, takabbur, arrogance, and you also understand the severity of being an arrogant person. We come back to the question in the khutbah of Sayeda Fatima Zahra. How is it that Sayeda Zahra says Salat cures a person or protects a person from arrogance? What is the connection between Salat and arrogance? As per the khutbah of Sayeda Zahra, the answer, the short answer to this is in the beginning statement of Surah Al-Hamd. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, creator of the entire universe. In essence, if a person was to say Alhamdulillah with ma'rifah, meaning that the human being has understood that everything that I possess, from my health, from my wealth, from every bounty and every blessing, I am dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this. If I have wealth, do not get mistaken that your wealth is because of your hard work only. Correct, hard work is needed. But you know, the brain that you use for this hard work, the functionality of this brain is decided by the Lord of the universe. Our breathing, our life, our death. If man realizes that he is helpless and cannot exist without being dependent on the Lord of the universe and believes in this reality, his dependency upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wipes out the arrogance and superiority complex from the heart. Because he understands mutlaqan, unconditional dependency and slavery to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now how I speak with the people around me changes. In fact, the most minute side effect of this mentality, understanding this, is that I'm not arrogant towards Allah. I said most minute, but in reality, some of the greatest things. Arrogance towards Allah, how? I am too busy to recite the Quran. I'm too busy to recite Salat. I'm too busy to recite Dua. This in essence is arrogance. When I say I'm too busy to recite Salat, meaning what? Lord of the universe, I am busy, I can't speak with you right now. This is arrogance. Have you tried saying this to any one of your colleagues or your family members or to your friends? How arrogant it comes. Allah Azza wa Jal says, Ya Bani Adam, I revealed to you a Quran through the Holy Prophet. 23 years your Nabi was persecuted for this Quran and its interpretation. Your Imam was struck in Sajda on 19th of Shahrul Ramadan for this Quran. And today, you Bani Adam tell me you're too busy to recite Quran. It's arrogance. This is arrogance, it's a form of arrogance. Because I feel I'm not dependent on this book anymore for guidance or for direction. So you find that Sayeda Zahra alayhi salam says, the institution of Salat has been ordained upon you to detach yourself from arrogance. Arrogance, yani superiority complex. And if this concept is understood, you find that the person has tawadhu in every act that manifests from him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And so on and so forth. You find that every action inside of your salat, your sajda is supposed to cleanse you from arrogance, superiority complex. Sometimes when I feel I am unbeatable in life, for whatever reason, whatever material success, or whatever material authority I may possess, authority at its different levels becomes a form of intoxication. Because with authority, a person feels he or she can act without restriction, as if they're not bound to any rules or regulations. But in every salat, when you put your head down in sajda, your first sajda indicates, Bani Adam, don't be arrogant, you were born from this dust. And the second sajda that you go into in every rakah, there are two sajdas. Second sajda is to remind you, Bani Adam, intoxicated as you are with your temporary successes, you are coming back down to this earth. Humble yourself. That's what Sayeda Zahra says. وَالصَّلَاةِ تَنْزِيحًا لَكُمْ مِنَ الْكِبْرِ. Salat detaches a person from arrogance and superiority complex towards Allah, towards the creation. And then you have arrogance towards Allah, arrogance towards the creation. And then you have arrogance towards the Prophet and the arrogance towards the wasi of the Prophet. And you find that this issue of arrogance and superiority complex and takabbur, we said it leads to what? Zulm, if you remember. You find that takabbur towards the Nabi and the Ahlul Bayt led towards the zulm of Ahlul Bayt right after Saqifa. Which is why, in my opinion and in my readings, when Sayeda Zahra said to those who oppressed her, and oppressed her husband because they thought they are more superior to her husband. She was actually telling them, Sahaba, your salat is not even accepted till today because you have arrogance. You fail to understand the philosophy of salat. You come to sit on the seat of Khilafah today. Takabbur, arrogance towards the Nabi, how? Refer back to Sahih Bukhari. Rasulullah is on his deathbed, suffering from the pangs of poison, the effects of the poison, because he was force-fed this poison. And the nature of the poison was such that Rasulullah would faint, gain consciousness, faint, gain consciousness, and lose weakness in his blessed body was weak, overcome with weakness. In this state of weakness on his bed, there are companions around him. And he says to them, give me a pen and a paper such that I may write for you guidance through which you shall never go astray. Look at any world religion. Any world religion, بِغَضِّ النَّظَرِ, without paying attention to whether they are on the right or on the wrong path. Any follower of any world religion, if their prophet was to give their followers one final command that would give them eternal success, how do you think they would respond back to them? Sahih Bukhari. Refer back to it. Internet versions, hard copies, English language, Arabic language, Urdu. Refer back. Umar ibn Khattab says to the rest of the companions, and Bukhari, the words have been distorted to make it more gentle. But he says, قَدْ غَلَبَ الرَّجُلَ الْوَجْعَ. The man is overcome with pain. So he doesn't know what he's saying. And in other texts, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَا يَحْجُرُ. Rasulullah is lying in front of them. He said, the man has become delirious. He has lost his senses. وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And he said, Hasbuna kitab Allah. Takabbur against the Nabi. The Nabi says, give me a pen and a paper. I write for you 2 things after which you shall never go astray. Khatamul Anbiya, Ashraful Anbiya is saying, I will give you something for which you will never go astray. The man stands up and says, Nabi on one side, for us, Quran is enough. Takabbur. He felt he was more superior to Rasulullah. Because he told the companions, you have me and you have the Prophet here. Prophet is asking for pen and paper. I am telling you, Quran is sufficient, so I listen to him. Meaning that I am superior to the Prophet. Kibr towards the Nabi. Kibr towards the Nabi. Kibr towards the Wasi. Arrogance towards Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayeda Zahra. They felt they were more superior to Amir and Zahra. Refer back to Sirah Halabiyah, authored by Burhanuddin Halabi, one of the most depended upon texts when it comes to Islamic history, between both Amma and Khassa. Sirah Halabiyah. The author states that the land of Fadak was confiscated from Sayeda Fatima al-Zahra. And Abu Bakr ibn Abi Quhafa summoned Sayeda Fatima al-Zahra to bring witnesses to prove that Fadak belonged to her. Sirah Halabiyah. If you come to the tafsir of Fakhruddin al-Razi, Tafsir al-Kabir, one of the greatest mufassirin of the Quran for the Mukhalifin, non-Shia. These are the words he states. Abu Bakr says to Siddiqat al-Tahira, you are no doubt the most beloved person to me. شوفوا العبارة. Look at how the conversation starts. Into you are people who are familiar with politics. He says to her, you are the most beloved person to me. However, I am not sure about your truthfulness. So bring for me witnesses who will attest and verify your claim of ownership to the land of Fadak. History records Sayeda Fatima al-Zahra came to the masjid with 4 people. Sayeda Ayman, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan, and Imam al-Hussein. The 4 of them bear testimony to the fact that Rasulullah had gifted Fadak to Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen during his lifetime. And the testimony of all 4 individuals was rejected. The testimony of Sayyida Ayman was rejected. The testimony of Amir was rejected. And the testimony of Hassanain was rejected. Arrogance towards Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra. For we ask the madrasa of Saqifa and the followers of the madrasa of Saqifa, does the people of Saqifa have a right to doubt the truthfulness of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra when in the Quran, according to all mufassirin from the Amma, under the verse of Tathir, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Refer back to all books of tafsir. Is there any discrepancy or any dispute in terms of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra being a part of Ayatul Tathir or no? If Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra is part of Ayatul Tathir, the verse of purification, Allah Azza wa Jal testifies that I have purified them from any sort of impurity. Then enter. Who are you to question the one who is purified by Allah? testimony of Imam Hassan and Hussein was rejected. Do you know on what grounds? On the grounds that they were too young. And these are the same two Imam Hassan and Hussein. Today, the Khalifa of Saqifa rejects their testimony based on their age. But yesterday they forgot that in the verse of Mubahala, when Allah Azza wa Jal said, wa abna'ana wa abna'akum, wa anfusana wa anfusakum, there were two from the sons of Rasulullah, Imam Hassan and Hussein, who was selected by Allah to represent Islam and the authenticity of Islam against the Christians. If Allah Azza wa Jal shows you the position of Hassanain through the ayah of Mubahala, or Khalifa of Saqifa, how can you question the testimony of Hassanain when it comes to Fadak? The insult is here. The fact that they had the audacity to ask for witnesses from individuals as pure as this. This is the greatest tragedy. They said to Amir al-Mu'mineen, your testimony is invalid. Allah. Invalid. If you understand, or those of us who work within legal framework, in the setting of a judiciary, when a judge tells you that your testimony is invalid, meaning that you as a witness are unreliable. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was discounted as being unreliable by the Madrasa of Saqifa. Or Madrasa of Saqifa. How is it that Amir al-Mu'mineen is unreliable when yesterday Rasulullah said Aliyun ma'al haq wal haqqu ma'a Ali, and it is in the books of the Amma. A tragedy of the land of Fadak is a symbolism of the tragedy in the usurpation of the Khilafah and the Wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Kibr and arrogance towards the Wasi. And this in itself destroyed the true remnants of Nabuwah and Tawheed. Our duty towards Sayeda al-Alameen begins with understanding and studying the Khutbah Fadakiyah, number one. And number two, studying the concept of Imamah through the Quran. And you find that it is the tragedy of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra that opened the doors of all the tragedy in Islam. Every other dhulm that took place, they are the ones who opened the door to this dhulm. Today, for our na'i, inshallah tomorrow we'll recite the incident of the door, keeping in mind that tomorrow night is the night of the Shahada of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, as per the narration of 40 days. Ya Shi'at al Mohamed, I want to recount for you the Masa'ib of Al Muhammad. And this is a conversation that takes place between the Fatimiyat in Alam al-Barzakh. Allah, the Fatimiyat, yani the pure women of Ahlul Bayt. In the Alam al-Akhirah, in the hereafter, all the women of Ahlul Bayt are seated together. The women of Ahlul Bayt, this is a conversation that happens between four of the Fatimiyat, Sayeda Fatima Zahra, Sayeda Ruqayya, Sayeda Sukaina, and Sayeda Zainab. Allah. In the hereafter, they are seated together, the pure women, and they're sitting and they're talking. Sayeda Ruqayya looks at her grandmother, Sayeda Fatima Zahra. She says, oh my grandmother Fatima, oh my grandmother Fatima, on the day of Ashura, on the day of Ashura, when they killed my father and they trampled on his body, I showed the head of my father on a spear. Oh, my grandmother Fatima, after killing my father, the horsemen began to ride their horses towards our tent. They were shouting, they were screaming, they had torches in their hands. Oh, my grandmother Fatima, I was scared, I was scared. This is a 3-4-year-old Sayeda Ruqayya talking with her grandmother Sayeda Fatima Zahra. She says, my grandmother Fatima, I was scared, I was terrified. As they came closer towards our tent, I called out to my uncle Abul Fadl al-Abba. Oh, my grandmother Fatima, even my uncle Abbas did not respond back to me. They came towards our tent, my grandmother Fatima, they lit our tent on fire. As the flame was raging through our khaymaga, oh my grandmother, I came running out into the desert. Oh my grandmother Fatima from Shamegariba, my eyes were burning. I was not able to breathe. I was choking and coughing. Oh, my grandmother Fatima, I was not able to breathe. Allah, Allah. Sayeda Fatima Zahra hugs Sayeda Ruqayya. She begins to wipe the tears from the face of Sayeda Ruqayya. She says to her, my granddaughter Ruqayya, all of this on Shame Kariban started after the Saqifa, when 300 men marched towards my house and they lit the door of your grandmother Fatima on fire. Oh, my granddaughter Ruqayya, oh, my granddaughter Ruqayya, like you, I was crushed between the door and the wall, choking and coughing from the black smoke behind the burning door. Allah, Allah, Allah. In this majlis in Alam al-Barzakh, Sayeda Sukaina stands up. Sayeda Sukaina says, my grandmother Fatima, on Shame Garibon, as I came out from the burning tents, Khuli saw me, and he threw a broken spear towards me. Oh, my grandmother Zahra, the manner in which he threw the spear on my head, the wound and the hardness with which he threw the spear, my grandmother Zahra, I fell down, I fainted in the plains of Karbala. Allah, Allah. Do you know what the Maktan says? When Sayeda Sukaina, I don't know how hard Khuli and Nain must have thrown the broken spear. Sayyidah Sukaina fainted. Sayyidah Sukaina says, I only woke up in the arms of my auntie Sayyidah Kulthum, and her tears were falling on my face. Allah. Allah. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra looks at Sayyidah Sukaina. She says to him, my daughter Sukaina, your dhulm and your oppression started. Your dhulm and your oppression started on the day of Saqifa. In the same manner in which they threw a broken spear on you. O Sukaina, Kung Fu entered my house. Kung Fu entered my house and hit me with a sword. He hit me with a sword on my shoulder and on my arm. On my shoulder and on my arm. Oh, Sukaina, I was buried in the grave and there was a bruising on my arm. Between Sayyidah Sukaina's tears and Sayyidah Ruqayya's tears, from the Fatimiyat who stands up, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra stands up. Allah. Sayyidah Zainab looks at her mother, Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. She says, my mother Zahra, I learned courage and I learned eloquence from you, oh my mother, in the way that you defended Imamat and Wilayat. In a khutbah, I learned this courage and I learned this eloquence from you, oh my mother Fatima. I would say the Zahra, say the Zainab says, but my mother Zahra, you delivered your khutbah in the masjid of Rasulullah. Oh, Mother Fatima, I had to deliver the khutbah. I had to deliver the khutbah in the darbar of Yazid in Shah. Mother Fatima, I was surrounded by evil men, intoxicated while I entered inside the darbar. Sayyidah Zainab says, Mother Fatima, this is a piece of you. I am Zainab, your daughter from Tahara. They took me as a prisoner from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. Allah, Allah. What do you think the reaction of Sayyidah Zahra was? Huh? Sayyidah Zahra looks at her daughter, she cries out. Sayyidah Zahra looks at her daughter and she cries out. Can you feel the pain in the voice of Sayyidah Fatima? Sayyidah Fatima cried out, Wa Zainab, oh my daughter Zainab, and I swear by the Lord and the throne and the arsh of Allah that as you were taken prisoner from Kufa to Sham, I walked with you as a prisoner, oh my daughter Zainab, oh my daughter Zainab, for every word you delivered in a khutbah, your mother Fatima died 1,000 deaths. But the last one, Sayyidah Zahra says, she says, my daughter Zainab, as you were in the khutbah, as you were in the darbar delivering the khutbah, I saw Yazid hit the head of my son Hussein. He kept striking the lips of Hussein with a staff. My daughter Zainab, I am Fatima. I died 1,000 deaths in Sham. My daughter Zainab, had they not burnt my door on the day of Saqifa, Karbala would not have happened. Matame Fatima, Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, 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 Hey Ya Hussein, 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 Hey Ya Hussein, 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 Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, 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 Zahra Chaya Dasra Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, de vich juda ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, de vich juda ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Hey Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Ajwe binte Hussain ro diye, 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 Ad mere paid tu chura ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Kive jawangi Sham the Kufa, 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 Mohamed Abbas, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Hey Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Zahra Chaya Dasra Ghazi, Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, Hoya Karbal, de vich juda آسرا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی چھ جگہ تو حسین چڑیا ہے 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 پھر بھی پورا نہ مل سکا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا 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 غازی میری چادر خدا دا پردہ ہے 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 میری چادر کی تو بقا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا 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 شمر رچ رچ حسین کو مارے 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 جان دائے نہیں رہا غازی ہائی شمر رچ رچ حسین کو مارے شمر رچ رچ حسین کو مارے جان دائے نہیں رہا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا مارش مولانا بارو مولانا بارخولی لانا غازی ہویا کربل ہویا کربل ہویا کربل دے وچ جدا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی کیوے جاواں شام تھے کوفہ 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 ایک محمد عباسی زہرا جایا آسرا غازی 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 زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، سجادے کو ضریب صدائیں کر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر 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 گئی، لاشوں کو رسیوں میں جکڑ کر لیے پھرو، لاشوں کو رسیوں میں جکڑ کر لیے پھرو، سیدہ تو گھر نکل کے ہی مر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر 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 گئی، جاتی تھی جو کبھی کبھی زہرا کی قبر پر، جاتی تھی جو کبھی کبھی زہرا کی قبر پر، جانے خدا ہجوم سے کیسے گزر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر 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 گئی، ظلم و ستم کی تیز ہوائیں تھی جب چلی، ظلم و ستم کی تیز ہوائیں تھی جب چلی، سب گلشن بطول کی کلیاں بکھر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر 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 گئی، سجاد کو ضریب صدائیں کر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی، وہ عابد بیمار تھا، وہ عابد بیمار تھا، چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا، چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا، اور شام کا بازار تھا، اور شام کا بازار تھا، اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق کے مانگا حسن یا حسین مولا حق کے مانگا حسن یا حسین 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 یا محمد وآل محمد صلوات
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير